All right, I think that everything's up. I'm gonna put in some music. I hope everything is good. I hope you can hear me. What a wonderful day! It's Wednesday, and yeah, we're getting started. If you're joining me from wherever, it'd be awesome if you would say hi. My kids are still off from school, and if you could tell me where you're from, that'd be cool. But if you're from Kansas City, don't worry about it. But if you're outside of Kansas City, Missouri, like let me know where you're from. Good morning, Jonas. I'm happy that you're here. Good morning. I am. Hey, look at this. How are you? Good morning. Where are you from? Robert, where are you from? Share with us so I can tell my kids. But if you're from Kansas City, then you don't have to. But otherwise, like, let me know where you're from. Say hi. We're getting started. I'm feeling pretty good today. I'm going to turn the music down. I hope audio's okay. Hello, hello. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Democ. Welcome. Cabernet, welcome. I see Cabernet. It's a little font. I had my glasses on, but it looks, and I was like, Kubernetes. Codecore, welcome. There it is. See, now I connect the dots. Welcome. Good morning. Oh, from Paris and from India. This is awesome. Today, I got a couple of things. I don't know if this is like cool. I'm a coder, but I got some packages, and I'm gonna open these up because my son's gonna be up and about here in a little bit, and he's going to help. He's gonna help me get these things set up like he's done before. But I got some new stuff. I got some Raspberry Pis, and that's kind of the thing. One of the things that I'm gonna talk about here is I'm gonna talk about Spring Boot. I'm gonna talk about Raspberry Pis. And if you are familiar with Raspberry Pis, I'm tearing this box open. Raspberry Pis are kind of cool, right? They're cheap, they're fun. Oh, here we go. You don't have to wait later. Like, ask your questions now. I'm opening up my Raspberry Pis. Ask your questions now as I get into this box, and let's get into it. So, here's the thing. I don't really have anything that I'm trying to get done. What I'm doing is I'm going to code in the open. I'm going to build stuff in public. And I'm going to be here to answer questions for you. Like, I just want to be available. So, I want to get into Spring Batch. That's kind of the topic. But I don't really have an agenda. So look at, and I say Spring Batch. Be careful, you say Spring Batch 3 times, and look who shows up. Glenn, I'm so happy that you're here. Glenn, I should just have you come on. If you're free, you just come on the stream and we'll go. But I've got a Raspberry Pi 5, and this is the 8 gig version. And I'm gonna open it up just so I can smell it. So yeah, that's what we'll do. And yeah, all right. Don't ask your question. It's cool. But yeah, class. All right, cool. Like, you can ask later. I'll be around. You know how to get a hold of me. So for everybody, let's do this. I am just going to. Yeah, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna do some things. Oh, I can't do it that way. Please hold. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna share my screen, and then I'm gonna put this back so I can see you. And we're gonna get into it. We're gonna open up a Raspberry Pi. We're gonna do this. Maybe not this one. Let's do this. Sometimes it's hard, and I get it. Sometimes it's hard to ask questions. So I have this little thing here on my website, Deshaun.com, where you can go in and you can just grab time. Just grab time for whatever you get. Like, this is a stream. I want you to ask questions here because your question might help somebody else. But I understand because I did that. I had a hard time answering questions. And this is a little too much for me at the moment, the music. So I'm going to switch it up. Here we go. Turn down just a tiny bit. I had a hard time asking questions. Even with like my teammates, you know, it was like, hey, I should know this. I'm a little embarrassed to ask the question. So I had a hard time. And unfortunately, I watched a lot of people ask questions and get over their problems faster. So I want to create a space here where eventually you'll feel comfortable asking questions, either here on the stream or grab time. And I get it. It's going to take some time to build trust, but that's what I'd like to do. Let's see. Let's take a look at the calendar here. Let's see what's coming out. We got some new versions. In fact, I was just a little bit ago, I was streaming and looks like we got a new version of Spring Shell. 3.1.7 and Spring Shell 3.2.0 got released today or should be released today. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, let's see what else we got. It's the new year, so not a whole lot else is coming out. But let's do this. I'm gonna close up some stuff. We don't need that anymore. There's a GitHub. I normally like to have this Excalibur. And I'll say like, hey, today, what are we getting into? Stream batch. Boom. Why? Like, right, I know. There was one time I thought everything could be a streaming use case with a little bit of effort. I was wrong. I was young, naive, and all right, let's stream batch. So one of the things, this came out recently, right? This billion row challenge. And this is interesting to me because I like this kind of thing that they like. But the only thing that's not interesting to me is doing this without any help, right? Here we're saying, hey, there's no dependencies. Like, we don't want you to use anything else. Do a billion rows, right? But you can't use any other tools. And I'm like, nah, that doesn't interest me. I'm not that person. So I think about, I could throw this into Redis. I can have Redis do all these things for me. Like, that's super easy. And we actually even talked about that yesterday. Like the whole data ingestion and how fast it can be. But that's not really the point, right? That's not really the point of that challenge. But for me, I'm still interested in these types of things. Like, how fast can you get a billion rows in and digest it? Yeah. So that's one of the other things. Like, we talk about Spring Batch. Go to spring.io, go to our projects. Here, Spring Batch. So what I've come to learn is that this has been around for a really long time, and it's been a lot of really cool things. Hey, hi. Thanks for joining. Let me know where you're from, unless you're from Kansas City. If you're from Kansas City, I don't need to know. But if you're from anywhere other than Kansas City, say hi. Let me know where you're from, because my kids will be here in a little bit, and they're gonna watch. Maybe they're watching upstairs. They are gonna want to see where you're from, and that to them, it's cool that there's people from other places. So cool, so cool. And what we're doing is we're gonna code Slovakia. That is amazing. And even though it says Cabernet Sauvignon, I'm gonna read that. In my head, it's always gonna be Kubernetes Sauvignon. Sorry about that. I hope that doesn't offend. So here, this is what we're gonna get into, but I just want, for those, I talk about Spring Boot, Raspberry Pis, same board computers, Kubernetes, and then build packs, and getting to production. But I've been doing this for a while. Argentina, man, I am so grateful. One of the things that I'm going to try to do in 2024 is talk slower. I want to be a little bit, I know I talk fast, especially when we've got people from all over the world where English might not be their first language. I need to speak slower and clearer, so I'm going to work on that. But today, I got not one, but 2 Raspberry Pis in the mail. I just want to open these because I think my son's going to be down in a minute. And I'm just tearing the box open. I don't care. I'm tearing the box open. I just want to open it up. Raspberry Pi 5. They switched things around. They moved things. And I have one of these already. but I really didn't like spend a whole lot of time looking at it. The one thing that I'm looking for like the date. They have like a build date. So I've got Raspberry Pis that were made in like 2015. I'm looking for the date on this one. And I'm not finding it. Maybe I need more light. Oh, it says 2022 on the board. Still, that's awesome. So that one says 2022. That's all. I'm just gonna open one more. I promise I'm gonna get into this, the coating here. But I got another box, and this one might have more stuff in it. Yeah, this one has a power supply in it. So apologies. I will get into the stuff. So here's the fun thing, is that most of the things that I build here, even though it's spring, I'm going to be deploying these things that we build. I'm going to be deploying them to Raspberry Pis. So this is a Raspberry Pi 5 Essentials kit. So it just has it's got a case and a cable and a card. It's got some extra stuff in it. And you guys hear the beeps. So I'm working and I'm streaming, and I'm a Springer developer advocate. Let's say that, right? Spring developer advocate at VMware by Broadcom. And that's my job. But when my friends ping me, and I'm pretty sure that you hear the noise, I gotta go find out what's going on. I gotta make sure that I'm answering my friends and find out. And yeah, I want to make sure that I do that. That's the thing, because I got to make sure that I'm not leaving my friends hanging, my coworkers. So yeah, this is Robotech. Good morning. I'm glad that you're here. And yes, Raspberry Pis, Raspberry Pi 5. These are the new versions. So yes, the Raspberry Pi mini computer. They are the size of a credit card. Yep, they are. These ones are a little bit. These are the Raspberry Pi 5s. So this is a much prettier box that we're getting into. These ones are the Raspberry Pi 5s. What's on the way to Robotech, she's getting a Raspberry Pi Zero W. So it's got Wi-Fi on it, but it's even like the footprint. And I normally have one, but I sent my one to Robotech. So this is another Raspberry Pi, and this one has a case. Oh, I need to open up this case because it looks interesting. And it has a power supply. And even though it came from China, I did get the US power supply. Or no, this one came from the UK. The other one came from China. So let me first grab one. Hold on. I normally have these kind of around. So this is the Raspberry Pi Zero. And I'm trying to look and see which version this one is. So this is 02. So this is a newer one. This 02 can do 64-bit. So I can build these applications and I can run them on this. I can run my Java native images on this. GraalVM does not support 32-bit ARM. So here's the first one. There's my Raspberry Pi 02W. Let's put these boxes over here. I'm gonna look at this case real quick. I promise I'm gonna get into the Spring Boot stuff because the case is definitely an upgrade, and it has a fan in it. So this case is definitely an upgrade from previous cases. Let's do a side by side. Oh, I just spilled all the screws out of it. That's not good. So here's a previous case. This is the Raspberry Pi 4. Here's the new case. You can see it's got some ventilation here to let that heat out, but it's also right. It's got the new port configuration. We can see that the Ethernet changed. Raspberry Pi 5, Raspberry Pi 4. We can see that the Ethernet stuff changed. But then this one also has a fan in it. That's something new. Oh, and it looks like it comes with a heatsink. Oh, and it does. It comes with a heatsink. So, should I be concerned? Should I be concerned? Because I put the Raspberry Pi 5, I stacked it with a bunch of other Raspberry Pi 4s inside of Legos. And honestly, like the whole like case thing. Oh, actually, which device do you have, Jonas? Because I'm not going to use these cases. I'm not going to use this case. I'm going to put everything into Legos. And my son's helping me out with that. My son and I think Lola's probably going to help me out with that too. But yeah, we got fancy case, power supply, and I'm going to open up this box. Just take a look. I'm going to look at that date. I'm tearing open the box because it's not going anywhere. Here. Quick call. Here. Yeah, do you want to jump on? Code Core. Like, you want to jump on here? Let's do this. I'm going to do this. Code Core. I'm going to to a link. I'm going to just bring you on if you don't mind, or you can just ask. So here, watch this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over here. Oh. I'm going to do this. Here we go. Boink. And there we go. Yeah, you've been invited, so you can jump on. And we'll see. We'll see if we can get it figured out. Yep. So we got heat sinks, the ESP. Yeah. So we're doing all sorts of cool stuff with these Raspberry Pis. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff with these Raspberry Pis. I have a 4B, but I will attach a cluster hat to it. Perfect. I think that is a case for that whole Pi with a cluster hat too. Yes, but it was out of stock. You can get it multiple places. You can get that in multiple places, and if you hold on one sec, I might have an extra one. Hold on. No. Oh, this is the other option that I did. I took the Raspberry Pi where I did when I wasn't using the cluster hat, and I was putting my minis next to it. So I'd have a cluster, not a cluster hat, but I had my my minis sitting next to my Raspberry Pi, and the minis were in their own little cluster. Another option, right? We're looking at these things, and the cool thing is, wait, I want to look at the date on this one. The cool thing is we are going to. This one is also 2022 on the board. We're going to take these production enterprise grade Spring applications. We're going to deploy into Raspberry Pis, and they're going to sit out in the yard, and they're going to water the plants, etc. We're going to throw away this trash, and they're going to do fun stuff. What is this cord? This is the HDMI cord, so we can plug those Raspberry Pis into our big stuff. Oh, and here's Code Core. I'm going to bring you on. Let me switch my audio. I'll turn off my music, and I'm gonna switch my mic so we can hear you. And let's go. So Core, Robert, you're now live.
Hey, buddy.
Welcome. I appreciate you coming on. And this is one of the reasons why I like StreamYard, is because we can just do this. If you've got a question, sometimes it's just easier to ask it.
So, I agree. I hate typing all my questions out. They're too long-winded. So Docker Swarm,
Yes.
right? So I have a Linux server. I've never deployed a Docker Swarm onto a Linux server.
Hmm.
How much of a pain in the butt is it, and how long of a process is it?
It shouldn't take that long. So let's share Docker Swarm.
Because I'm a noob when it comes to Docker, but
Yep.
I'm running a bunch of microservices.
So first question is, do you need Swarm? Right, Swarm.
I'm not 100% certain.
So I'm
Like,
gonna.
the bottom line is I have microservices
Mhm.
that I'm deploying,
Yep.
and I need to be able to sit there and talk. I don't care if they're each in their own Docker container and I deploy each of them individually, but I don't know what the right method is.
Yep. So what Docker Swarm is going to do, it's going to right here, where it's going to be bring multiple Docker instances into like a single environment. So you have multiple machines, multiple Docker instances, and bring them into one. What you might just need is Docker Compose. And we talked about this yesterday. If I go to my favorite example is Jonathan's. So he's showing us how to use Spring Observability, but he includes in it this really nice Docker setup. So he's got a Docker Compose file. Let's take a look at this. He's got a Docker Compose file where all you need is Docker Desktop, and this might be your solution. So you can say, hey, I need an instance of MySQL deployed as a Docker instance. I need an instance of Adminer. I need an instance of. So these are just Docker images that we're deploying together in a unit, in a composition.
Okay.
So you can have multiple microservices, right? And these are saying Prometheus Grafana, but you could also have microservice A, microservice B, microservice C, web front end A, and you can deploy them in a composition, and then they
Okay.
all know how to talk to each other, so they can all have access. So you don't necessarily need Swarm to do that.
Okay.
And just based on our previous conversations, this might be where you need to start,
Yeah.
and
So
this
right
should be
now I
easy.
do have a Docker Compose file up, and I do have 3 services standing up, and they're talking. Like, some of it's in the rudimentary stage, but if it's, I just need to download and install Docker Desktop for
Yep,
Linux on that
yep,
system,
yep. Or
and
in,
then
are you using the desktop? Because there's Docker Desktop, and there's just regular Docker. I use
so
Docker
the
Desktop.
server sits on Linux. I'm doing all my development on
Yep,
a Windows system, so
yep. So you might not need Docker Desktop. You might just need Docker, which
yeah.
is two different things. You might not need the UI and all that kind of stuff deployed there.
No, I probably won't, as long
So
as
yeah,
I can sit there and verify they're working easily.
yep,
So if that's the case, and I have no need for Docker Swarm,
yeah. And
then
Docker
that
Swarm,
makes that easy.
yeah, that you could deploy Docker Swarm and do the same thing, but you're probably not going to need it
Okay.
based on what I understand. So yeah,
No, like that's super helpful because that removes the barrier.
let's save some time, right? Let's get to
Oh, a
production
decent amount
faster.
of time. Decent amount of time. That's all I'm trying to do is
Yeah,
save time because it gets expensive.
exactly.
Okay.
All right. Well, I know
And
you only have a little
then
break, but anything else I can help with, let me know.
uh, so when you're setting up Postgres
Hmm.
through Docker,
Yep.
performance wise, is there anything I need to be concerned about? Like, right now I'm talking, I have about 13, 14 tables, about 20,000 plus entries
I
in
don't.
each of those tables.
Yeah, I
And
don't. I
then
don't
it'll,
expect that to be any issue, right? We're talking about billions of rows at a time.
yeah, okay. So,
So yeah, I don't expect that
yeah,
to be an
that shouldn't
issue.
be a problem then. That shouldn't be a problem for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Um, what would you say would be the best way to go about backing up that data?
that's a good question, right? It depends, but like one of the things I have a hard time with. Actually, I even have a document here. Um, right, I talk about. I don't like active passive, right? But there's things that we do. Um, I'm trying to find the right slide here. Hold on. Here. Here's an example of what we like to do. Like every once in a while, you say, "Hey, give me a backup," and just write that backup to disk. But then you don't want it sitting on the same disk as the system that you're trying to back up. You want to
Mm-hmm.
get it someplace else, someplace different
Separate.
region, yeah, different
Yeah.
geo, so you can have it. And yeah, this is kind of the high level approach. It's like, hey, like every hour, every day, or whatever, take a backup, and once you've got that backup, then copy it over. So these are functions that I had created that says, hey, schedule this function to call a backup, and then this function says anytime there's a new file in this blob in this container, then copy it over to another region. Right. So then you have
How
it in another
often?
region. It depends on your use case, right?
So I mean, like the stuff I'm talking about is some PII stuff and some financial debt collection stuff.
Yep.
I assume nightly backups are probably a requirement.
Well, I talk about this as like this is like the bare minimum. Actually, there was a use case here. I think I added it to the slides. Look at here. So this is from Govardhana, and I was doing this talk. Let me do it so we can maybe see it a little better. I was doing this talk at a conference, and the day before the conference, I saw this blog post. And what he didn't do was an active example. So like, hey, you can do the backup restore, right? It's showing these different use cases. You can do the pilot, like, hey, if I'm over here, you could synchronize your data automatically. You can do like CDC. What is the tool that Gunnar made for CDC? It's on the tip of my tongue. I cannot think of it. He made the tool, Debezium, right? You could use something like Debezium to just like, hey, if I'm writing to this Postgres or whatever it is, once it's written, have it write to another Postgres someplace else. So every transaction gets copied over. So then you have this second version of that image for every single write. Debezium is a tool that would help you do that or could help you do that. But Postgres has this duplication hook or plugin that you can do as well. So you have options. But I like active. I like having a second copy. If something goes down, I've always got another version. But one thing is there's a difference here, right? What if when you write that data, what if when you write, you corrupted something and you want to roll back to a previous point in time, right? The active doesn't solve that case, right?
No.
So you still need to have those kind of snapshot point in time things. And when do you do those? Right? So my kind of rule of thumb is when I'm doing database migrations, like take a backup before I do my migration or update a version of the schema, for example, take a backup. But if I'm doing active, other than that, maybe daily. All right, let me find out. So if I do corrupt it somehow, daily I should be able to do the noodling, as long as I don't lose any of the rights.
How big does that get with size?
It depends.
Well, that's a stupid question. I'm sorry.
It depends, right? So the things that we're getting into, like, and the reason I'm talking about batch today is like when we talk about data, right? Data is kind of the new currency, and we're talking about billion row challenges. Like this, a billion rows is not that big of a deal, right? When I'm comfortable and I've worked with dozens of use cases where we're doing millions of writes per second. Millions of writes per second. It's really easy to get to a billion, right?
Yeah.
When you're going that fast. So the scale of things has changed a lot over the years. And depending on,
It's for the better, though.
yeah, depending on what you're doing, we're going to, have different options. But these are fun problems to have, fun problems to solve.
No, that's super helpful. Like,
So here's my thing: is that you're on a break. Go get back to what you're doing, but you always know that you can come and we can talk. And if you want to just hop on a stream and you want to work through some things together, we can do that.
All right, cool, man. I might hit you up later in the next couple of days. I appreciate you though, dude. And I'm glad you're
All
back.
right. Awesome. I appreciate you. You take
All right,
care.
buddy.
Thanks for jumping in.
You too. Thanks for having me, dude.
All
Bye.
right. Jonas, I see that you were able to get your Circle CI set up. Oh, that makes me so happy. That is awesome. And yeah, so you're building it. Did you run it? Did you put it onto your Raspberry Pi? That is super cool. Brahma says, I've got to go. Yeah, thanks. And Simon, hello. And nice to see someone mention a Pi hat. I love seeing Holly running a Liberty server on it years ago. Awesome. Awesome. Robotech is on their way to work. Mohammed says, check the license for Docker Desktop. Right. They changed the license. Docker Desktop is one of those things that I am happy to pay for work. And yeah, it's worth it. So yeah. Oh, so you got it running. You got that is excellent. So cool. Today, I was thinking about getting into some Spring Batch, right? We did the stuff with YouTube. One of the other things was like logs, analytics. You get these big reports, and hey, if you want to do something with it, I was saying like, I thought that everything could be like a streaming use case, and when you're dealing with billions of rows, do you really want to be doing that? Right? We're talking millions of writes per second. Do you really want to be doing it as a streaming use case? Especially when there's like writes and rewrites on the same thing. So here's an example from history, from my history. It's like we write value 1, we write value 2, we update value 1, we update value 2. And this is all happening in like seconds. Do you really want to be taking all of these things as a stream? In some cases, yeah, but if there's millions of these happening per second, if there's millions of them happening per second, then you're going to run into some problems downstream, right? Right, that I/O, I/O bound. So it's better. Like, hey, if I'm doing this millions of times, it's better to say, hey, instead of doing it as a stream, take a snapshot of a bunch of those things and send that. Right? And depending on what you're doing with those writes, right? So again, I was young and naive. I was like, oh yeah, stream. But there's just points where it doesn't make sense. When those values are changing a lot, they're going to change a bunch of times over 5 minutes. And the use case was over lunch. People are going to change a bunch of their stuff. But then it's going to be static for the rest of the day. So why capture those millions of writes and transfer those millions of writes when I could just say, wait until after lunch and do it once? Especially if I'm paying for ingress, egress. When we're talking about these use cases, there's a lot of things to consider, right? There's all these different vectors, right? One is like I/O. Another one's like performance. Like, do I need those changes in real time? Do I need those things? Right? Oh, and then and now there's also like cost. Like, you have a bunch of different things you kind of need to look at and analyze. And a lot of times, for me anyways, I would get hung up on one thing. Oh, if I do it this way, it'll slow down, right? If I do it this way, it'll get too big. Disk used to be expensive, right? In the long ago, right? And so was RAM, right? And now, like, you can do a lot of things in memory, right? I talk about Redis, right? There's a lot of things where doing stuff in memory, right? If you're looking at performance and value and I/O, it might be more valuable and it might be cheaper than disk. Please hold. Fantastic. All right. So now that it's just us, let's put some music back on and let's get going. Let's just talk about these use cases. And I'm going to show you, we're going to pick a simple use case that we've already kind of done. And yeah, let's do that. We're going to jump into one of these use cases. I'm going to change my audio settings because I want to hear some stuff. And let's keep going. Here we go. We can't see the text in the right corner because of the video. Oh! How about there? Thank you. Thank you for that. I gotta get better at being aware. Right, so that's where this view? Not that one. This one? No, not that one. This one? There. That's better. Right? So then you can see all the stuff. All the writing. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. So let's jump in. Let's jump in. Let's do this. The use case that we did a while ago was we looked at. We did a YouTube thing. Let's open that up. Maybe is that the right one? Let's open that one up and let's do it a different way. Fun. We did it in Java Grunt. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right. Oh, invalid password. Let's try that again. What is happening? There you go. You can hear the beeps, and the beeps are, I gotta make sure that all my friends. Oh boy. And sometimes the friends, sometimes we get like just sad stuff. Sometimes doing stuff is fun, and there's exciting times where we're doing fun stuff, and sometimes, so these are what entries look like when we do the event streaming, but we're gonna grab this, and that I believe is my channel ID. We're gonna grab this, and we're gonna go look at, there is a stream, there's an XML, there's a feed. I think I take this out. Yeah. So this is XML. Daniel, welcome. We're gonna do some Spring Batch, and this is the domain that I think we'll use to kick it off. Yeah. So we'll see. We're getting into it, and what we're doing now is I'm looking. So I've got this feed of all the videos on YouTube for my channel. So like here's the one that we're doing right now. Like we are in this show right now, but it has all these entries. And I believe it's just, it doesn't have all of them. So it's only a point in time, right? It goes back to 12/3. So it's not all, but it's recent-ish. It's about a month worth. And I want to grab that. I want to pull it in. So what I was thinking was I would use that as my use case. So imagine, again, we're thinking big, but we're gonna build small. Imagine we have 1 billion rows. And one of the things that Spring Batch is gonna do is gonna make it so that if I get down to row 999,999,999 and I run into an error, do I wanna start over? No, we don't wanna start over. So Spring Batch gives us some of those retry capabilities, those transactional capabilities, and it gives us like, yeah, we can do statistics. We can see like how long each entry is taking, etc. But just stuff that you might want. So it's cool. it's a cool project, and they're always coming out with new stuff. So over here, no, this is not pre-recorded. This is not pre-recorded. I am so happy that you are chatting. I'm streaming over on Kick, and the thing is, on Kick, and I hope I didn't miss it. On Kick, nobody chats, and I can't bring the chat into here just yet. Kick is kind of new; it's coming up. But I stream on a bunch of channels, right? We've got folks from LinkedIn and Twitch and YouTube and Twitter, and over here on Kick. But nobody ever talks on Kick, so I got this conversation over here on Kick, and I wanted to say hi, but I think I missed them. I think they're like, oh, this is recorded, and let's leave and come back. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I'm just happy that somebody on Kick.com was like, hey, is this live or recorded? And I think I took too long, because the other thing is it doesn't tell me like when they chatted. So here, let's just take a look. Let's just jump in. And this is what I like to do. I like to go into the docs, and let's take a look at the reference docs. And let's just read. Spring back an introduction. What I was thinking was I would do this thing. I want to grab a feed, and I just want to pull that feed in and make sure I didn't miss anything every once in a while. So let's take a look. Right, we got some new stuff. This is kind of where I want to start. So yeah, project idea. Yeah, I have some project ideas. I do these things. I care about you. Like, does it matter? So like when I do these different episodes, right? Today we're doing Spring Batch. Yesterday was Spring Cloud Gateway. When I do these different episodes, I want to figure out like what are the things that you liked hearing about that people were watching. So I look at those numbers to figure out, oh yeah, hey, they enjoyed the Spring Cloud Gateway episode. So those are the analytics. But how do I measure that? I can measure on the people that are viewing it live. I can measure on the people that view the video afterwards. But also I'm putting these things into GitHub. All right, so these in GitHub, there's also analytics. If I go into one of these projects like this one, right, there's insights, traffic. Like, hey, look at 4 whole clones, like fantastic, like we're doing stuff. So maybe, right, we talked about it yesterday and some people went and saw it. That's fantastic. So maybe I want to analyze those kind of things. Hey, fantastic. I would love to know what's new in Spring Batch 5. Let's go take a look. So these are my use cases, like analytics. Let's pull stuff in. Right, AI is cool. We're doing all sorts of stuff with AI. So we got to get our data first. And sometimes that data is not streaming data. Sometimes that data is going to be in batch form, right? I don't get events every time somebody goes and views a GitHub repository. In order to get this information, I've got to scrape it or something. Maybe there's an API that I can go and get, but I don't get these types of events. I can't subscribe to these types of events on a platform like GitHub. So I've got to do it in a different way. So this is why we're getting into the batch. There's going to be some batch workloads. So let's take a look, right? Sama, thank you so much for joining. I hope I said that right. But what's new in Spring Batch? And Glenn may or may not be here. Glenn is one of my good friends on the Spring Engineering team. Was here earlier. I'm going to do this because I can. I'm going to go over here into my Slack and I'm going to say, Glenn, what are you busy? I'm going to say, are you busy? Question mark. Do you want to come on my stream and talk about what's new with Spring Batch? Question mark. If you are free, question mark, or comma, space, here's a link. I'm going to say copy a link, invite. If you are free, dash arrow, link, boom, StreamYard. There we go. So if Glenn is free and available, we'll just bring him on. And we'll bring him on and we'll talk. But otherwise, I know that there's some things. So, right, we always do the dependencies. So, as a reminder, when we're going through like the new things, right, we fixed that. We talked about that. Yes. We're gonna do. We're gonna pull in analytics. We're gonna pull in stuff, or YouTube, and then here we're gonna talk about like what's new in Spring Batch 5. And we asked Glenn to see if he's free. So before we dig into here, I want to. And we already looked at it, right? Calendar.spring.io. There's always new stuff coming out, and if I go backwards, there's one. I think there's only 4 weeks in 2023. So let's talk. There's one where there wasn't something new. Here's Glenn. Oh, let me fix, because you're probably hearing an echo. Sorry. Let me fix this. Pause. Let me fix my audio so that you don't hear yourself. Audio stream and here we are. You're here. Hi.
Hello. How are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic. So much better now that you're here.
Whoa. I don't know about that. We'll find out in a second.
What t-shirt are you wearing today? Because you always have wonderful t-shirts.
Let me see. Let me put myself on camera. Let's see here. Okay, it is. I miscalculated.
Fantastic. Love it. So Sama's here, and Sama said, you know what? I would love to know what's new in Spring Batch 5. And I've been messing around, dibble-dabbling in Spring. What I found out recently was Michael Manella, our friend and colleague, Michael Manella has written multiple books on Spring Batch. I had no idea until like a week or two ago.
Well, the history is all right. So we'll get to the new stuff in a second, because there was some
history.
we did a lot of updates on Mongo. We did a lot of, or I should say we. It was mostly Mahmood. Mahmood is the current owner of Spring Batch. Before then, it was Michael Manella. Before then, it was Dr. Sire. Dr. Sire was the person who actually created it. So that is the history. And Michael Manella is now the director of Spring. So if you want to get to be a director of Spring, you got to go through Batch first, is I think the way.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You got to go through Batch. Okay, cool. So I'm on the right track.
No, you are. So let's take a look at what's new. So we just released the 5.1 that came out back in December.
Yeah, where is it?
Actually, no, was it November? So I think it's. I mean, I gotta go look at when he put this out there.
Where's
Spring? So we have we added virtual. So first off, how many of y'all like virtual threads? How many like virtual threads?
Second, I like virtual threads.
Well, we have virtual thread support. So so
there's one.
So that is one big thing. So whether you're using, if you have used just regular threads, and you're like, hey, I want to go ahead and try the virtual threads, you're in great shape. Spring Batch does through basically Batch handles threading through the task executors. So, when Spring 6.1 came out and said, well, we're going to make the executors be, have these virtual thread things. Batch said we can do it too. So they added that. Let's see.
But that's huge.
Yeah.
Right. When we're doing these batch processes, what is the virtual threads giving us? Right.
Yeah. I mean, well, gosh, you look at the experimentation that people have been doing, and so it's like, the first off, the thing is that you don't have to do the allocation. You don't have to. The pooling is you don't have to pooling anymore. Again, with anytime when you experiment with threads and you replace them with virtual threads, I always say this: experiment, right? Okay. Because just by putting them in there, you may not see a speed improvement, right? It depends on what you're doing. How many you're allocating. If allocation is your problem, virtual threads will save you a lot.
Right.
But if you're just grabbing one thread,
right. So if your code was set up to grab the system threads, and you were doing a pool of system threads, and then you change to Spring Boot 3.2 and Java 21, and you say, enable virtual threads, you're not going to see an improvement.
Probably not, unless you're just grabbing a ton. Right? That's the thing, right? And so there you go.
But you got to go in and change. Like if you were using system threads, you got to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to use virtual threads by default. One of the questions that I had when we were in Singapore, they're like, But aren't system threads heavier or virtual threads heavier? Like, which one should I be using? Like, they had this like concept of it being a heavier process as a virtual thread versus a system thread. And that's a non-issue, right? What you're saying is just like experiment. There's going to be
Yes.
some things where maybe you're, I don't know what it is, but do some experiments. Scientific method. You have a hypothesis, try it out, validate it, give a test, and see what works.
Exactly. I mean, to me, it's like this. It's like when we first started working with native compilation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Spring Batch supports native compilation. Okay, yeah, it's we're like I'm like I don't see that much performance improvement, but let's give it a shot. And Mahmood just went in and he dug in, and it was like wow. Again, experiment with it. Depends on your use case, but right out the gate, there was a significant performance boost by doing native compilation. Will Crack work with a batch app? Well, you could, but the thing is, Crack gives you that fast start,
Yep.
right? With batch, it's maybe not the biggest thing that you're worried about, right? So it probably won't give you that. But again, it's all that experimentation, play, try.
Yeah.
Mostly with batch, it's like if I'm going to be running this thing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours, 6 hours, it
Overnight.
depends.
Yeah.
Overnight. And so startup time is less of a issue than if you were doing functions, or maybe if you're doing some apps that you're running. You're like, I got to spin these things up and down.
Yeah.
Batch, there we go.
Yep.
So
So Sama specifically, Sama says, I was doing some migrations from Spring Boot 2 to 3, and I had a really hard time with some of the Spring Batch stuff.
oh
There's a
yeah,
lot of things that have changed. I know, like our job, we had a factory that we don't need a factory. We just have a builder now. So
that
some
was
of like the
configured.
constructs.
Configure's no longer there, so the batch configure is gone. That was one
Okay.
thing. The other is that job parameters, how job parameters are stored, changed. So basically, job parameters were strings, longs, doubles. Now it can be any type, right? So how you that was another significant change. Now these are empowering to batch. That was one thing. So job parameters changed. We no longer use the batch configurer. The other is that used to you had to say at enable batch processing, right?
Mhm.
So that on a Spring Boot 3 or Spring Boot 2.7, you say at enable batch processing, and okay, it says okay, now that enables batch auto configuration. In Boot 3.0, you didn't put that in there. Actually, it went. The Spring Boot folks said, "Well, this is actually counter to every other way we do auto configuration. Auto configuration always just works unless you tell it not to,
Yeah.
right?" And it was like opt out. Well, in the batch case, it was you had to opt in by putting that in there. So they said in 3.0, they're like, okay, if you don't put at enable batch processing, you're opting in, you're getting it. But if you put add enable batch processing, you're going to do that configuration, which is still simple,
Yep.
but you're going to be doing it. Gosh, what else was there?
So
course,
let me
we have-
ask this question.
Go ahead.
And have you worked with any customers that are migrating?
Yes, I mean I've worked with like with Spring Cloud Dataflow. Spring Cloud Dataflow 2.11 supports both Batch 2 and Batch 3 schemas or it's not schemas, but releases. And so we had a lot of customers asking questions about that, like how do we migrate? How do we do this? And some of it was really with the data flow side. We said that okay, what you're going to do is you're going to, basically you're going to have two different schemas. Like as you phase out your boot 2 apps, you're going to phase those out, and then you're going to be bringing in your boot 3 apps, and it begins this migrate. I can't see the other side. Let me see where am I at? Okay, here we go. You're going to be doing it this way, right?
Yeah.
As the boot 3s go up, the boot 2s go down. and you use two different schemas to be able to support that, and it does cause a little bit of an issue where you're like, okay, I got to check two sets of tables to make sure that stuff is running. But that was because, again, when we talk about a major release, a 2 to 3, that's where we're going to introduce those changes.
That's
Yes.
kind of implied in the semantic versioning that there
Correct.
are some changes. So question, and I don't know the answer to this.
Mhm.
Are there any recipes? I got a comment over here on Kick that says, "Hi, guy on the right. Love the Java container. I'll have to find myself one of those." All right, I don't know if I'm on the right or if you're on the right, but I think it's yours. I think somebody likes your T-shirt.
Oh, yeah, the T-shirt. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you ever look, you see he's got a beaker. I have a beaker. Let me hold it like he's doing it. So there we go.
Nice. That might be what they're talking about. The coffee
yeah, I
cup.
think it is. It's the
Java container.
Yeah. This is the Java container. Got caffeine on it.
Fantastic. So today, just that alone, Glenn, I got to say thank you because I'm streaming on Kick. Kick's stuff doesn't come in here, but this is like the first day that I've actually had conversations happening over on Kick. So yay. Thank you for being here. And yeah, we're doing stuff. So I was going to ask a question. My question was recipes. Do we know, are there any recipes available for Spring Batch to help us get from 2 to 3?
That is a great question. I don't know if anybody's created a recipe for them yet. I could ask Mahmood.
You don't have to know the answer. I didn't know the answer. I spent a lot of time with Open Rewrite and doing that. Oh, and here's the question right here. Can Open Rewrite help in the migration?
That is a great question.
Perhaps. So here's the cool thing is even if there's not a recipe to help us migrate, maybe that's a good opportunity for us to add, right? For us to go in and see if we can build. So in my head, right, when I go here, I'm gonna share my screen again, present. I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna
ask a person really quick to see if they know something. That's the reason, folks. I get like Deshaun just said, we don't know everything, but we ask.
Yeah, we know the people. We know the guys.
I do.
Right? So here, I'm going to go actually over to support. And our friend Anand and I were having a conversation, right? Spring AI is this cool new thing. And we were kind of looking, I'm just starting at the beginning, right? And Spring Batch is right up there at the front. And I know that there are a ton of Spring Batch workloads. Mm-hmm. And if I was wanting to do something interesting, one thing I might do is I might take a look at Spring Batch documentation.
Yep.
And I might take a look at the old documentation and the new documentation. And I might go to here and in the docs, like our team has always done a good job of where the changes. There's a specific thing that we do. Oh, please hold. All right, the kids are home. So the idea, anyways, was like, hey, let's pull in the documentation from the old version and the new version. Let's see what's changed. And it's documented someplace, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but we have like, hey, here's your property changes. Here's the breaking changes, and we document that. But it'd be nice to maybe use the Spring AI to help us write those Open Rewrite recipes. I like Open Rewrite recipes because it's awesome. It's working. I've been sharing that all over the place. But our tools, our Spring CLI, our Spring Boot Migrator can use those Open Rewrite recipes as well. So we can kind of pull those in and help people migrate. And we've got some other tools that are, coming around the corner.
That's a good question. I really have not. I know that Jonathan's probably going to chase me down and say, Glenn, why have you not looked? And I'm like, I'm sorry, John.
So here, let's go see. So we can do this, right? We go to docs.openrewrite.org and we go over to the recipe catalog. And this is where we would normally go. Into Java, into Spring, and we look. Oh, look at this.
I'll be dog.
Look at there. Spring Batch. So, Sama, let's see what we got here. So we've got migrate item writer, migrate job builder factory. This is the one I was talking about, to job builder. So this
Yep.
is not
Oh
a
yeah, the factory.
specific,
Yep.
it
Hmm.
doesn't look like there's a specific from 2.x to 3.x, but it's got some of these things in there that might help with a 2.x to 3.x or a 4.x to a 5.x a spring batch.
Agreed.
So, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
look
and
at
the thing
this.
is that a lot of it was, I know that like with the default batch configure may be a little painful for folks. The
Yep.
factory, I don't think it was that bad per se on that change, but like
Yeah.
if you're doing any tweaking within, like I said, the job parameters, you may have seen some stuff there that might cause an issue. Um, but yeah, I think the number one question I got was like, my stuff's not working in boot 3. Why not? And I went, can you send me a sample of your code? And they would, that's folks. I won't lie to you. Whenever you ask a question on whether you're coming in on Stack Overflow or you're coming in through Gitter or GitHub, and you ask a question, one of the first things we're going to ask is, you know, great explanation, and
Help
sometimes
us.
we can help it help, but it's going to be, we may ask for either a code give us a small example that exhibits the problem, because then we can see what's going on without we don't make assumptions on our side, right? We're making
Yep.
these assumptions, and they're like, and I'm like, I can't get it to happen. I can't get your. I agree with you. I know you see it, but I can't see it. So when you pass on the like a code sample, sometimes we could get it, but sometimes it's out of context. But we may ask for a small project that exhibits the problem. Then we go, that's what it is. My assumption was wrong. That's the issue. Let's go work on it.
Hey,
And
Glenn.
yeah,
I'm gonna have you drive for a second. My wife is calling me from upstairs because the kids are home and they're having some issues with the Apple TV. So I'm gonna let you drive for a second. You keep on talking. Here's a
okay.
question: do you think GIT will become less relevant in the future because more people are using AOT? So I'll be right back.
You know, that is a good question. I don't know. I mean, I tell you what, JIT has always been an advantage, and I'll put it this way: AOT does give you that prescribed passion of being able to identify exactly how you want your. I don't know. JIT has just always been a hero of mine. It just goes in and auto sets up. Um, let me see. Let me look this up real quick. I'm just gonna go hit this real quick. Um, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna channel my inner Nate Shuda. I think I've just lost everybody. No, I didn't. Okay, good. I'm gonna channel my inner Nate Shuda. It depends. Um, JIT has many advantages in order to just-in-time compile exactly what you need done when you're going to do it. However, if AOT says, look, if what you're trying to do is you're oh gosh, I hate saying it depends. Really, you got to test it out, because, like I say, with batch, what we found is, like, if you are just the plain execution time, the startup time was a lot faster. It was you're able to support and run things at a good pace. And so in those cases, it was really good. But the thing is that what you also get with some AOT is that the longer an AOT runs, like if you're running an LRP or a long running process, sometimes it degrades. And so it degrades over time as performance drops. So that's where I say you got to experiment. Um, it depends on your use. If what you have is already doing great, go for it. But if you're saying, you know what, I need to squeeze more resources into a compute, meaning
Yep.
instead of running 2 in here, I need to run 10, then AOT may be your thing, and you just need to make sure you know how to repave them. In those cases, you need to restart, right?
Yep.
Um,
The case I always
the
like to do is like, how are you getting paid? How are you making money, saving time,
Yeah,
etc. And one of the use cases in my history is if you're being paid per write, right? Something or per like operation, that happens and writes to disk, if you're being paid on those operations and you're being limited, you're only allowed to do 8 billion rows, right? And you want to be able to do 10 billion rows so that you can make more money, then then that matters, right? If you're getting paid and your latency on your writes is 4 milliseconds, this is the use case, it's 4 milliseconds, but they're getting paid every one. So if they can go from 4 milliseconds down to 2 milliseconds or whatever measure, they can make twice as much money.
Right.
So if you're trying to optimize for something like that, then here we are.
Well, I mean, it's also if you have an environmental goal, like, we want to reduce power consumption.
Yeah.
AOT is more preferred over JIT. I've just always been a fan of JIT because, again, it tunes your app as you went along.
Yep.
And sometimes that was just clearly the best option. The other thing with AOT is that Spring made it really simple to be able to natively compile your app. But sometimes if you're pulling in other libraries, it may get a little bit interesting when you have to do and drop the hints. Yeah. So that does add a little complexity up front. But like I said, it's that, oh gosh, I just feel Nate Shooter just like sprinkling down all over it. I was with Venkat. Gosh, was it about 2 or 3 weeks ago? And I asked him, I said, how many times do you use the word "it depends"? And he says, well, not that much. I found other words to use it, but he said, I was having my bathroom remodeled, and I asked the contractor which is better, and he did it to me. It depends. And he said, I couldn't believe it. Somebody was doing it to me.
How dare they?
I know. I thought it was great. I love Venkat.
So the question from Sama. Sama, thank you so much for the questions. Is it easier now to compile a native image from a Spring Batch project? Yes.
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 Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is. That's it. That's the answer. It is, because of all the work that we've done over the past years. There a lot of effort's been put into this so that we can make these, anything under that Spring umbrella now has an easier path to a native image. So yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, what is it more difficult to compile it into a Docker container? I want to ask you that, Deshaun. Is it just that much harder?
It's not. So so the only thing, let's just jump in.
Just show us. I think it's hard. I think it's impossible.
So let's jump in. Let's take a project. Hey, so we have this project here that's going to do a listener. The default, right? And this could be a Spring Batch project. It's not, but the default is if I want to compile a native image, I do -p native. So I'm saying, hey, parent Palm, I'm about to use GraalVM to do this, and all I do is native : compile. And now and that's it. So what I will get from the output here is I will get a statically linked native binary. So it's only going to work on this operating system, which we're using Darwin, and it's only going to work on this architecture, which is ARM64. But GraalVM takes care of that for us, and it's going to do all of that ahead of time processing. The AOT. Oh, I'm not using the right JVM, so let's do this. SDK use Java 21.0.1-GraalCE.
SDK man is my hero.
I love SDK man. So let's fix that, and now we're going to do this GraalVM native image, and it's doing all the ahead of time processing. And again, at the end, if I was on a Windows machine, I'd get a .exe. But here we're going to get this just binary file. And earlier today, I was doing a Spring Shell, right? And the benefits of having this AOT processing for these Spring Shells. Now I've got these Spring apps that I know and I love, and all my abstractions and my conventions are all there, and I can do Spring Shell apps, and I can compile them to ARM64 for Darwin, and I have those Spring Shell apps now running, and they're just on my path, and I'm doing things with Spring and Java that I used to have to do with Python and Bash and all sorts of other things that I'm not comfortable with. Not that they're bad, but my comfort level is here, and now I can do all of these things and more here. So the question here from Daniel is, do we need to import runtime hints? The nice thing is when we do this, if we go to start.spring.io, while that other one compiles in the background, if I grab this, GraalVM native support, that is grabbing all of the hints. That's connecting to the metadata repository. and getting all the hints that are available. And so for all of the projects in the ecosystem that are trying to make themselves available for AOT processing, they're adding their hints for their project, for their third-party project that's not a Spring project. They're saying, oh, I use reflection here and I have a proxy here. So here's the hints, and then they put it into that metadata repository. If you grab this dependency, you're going to have access to that repository. You need to do nothing else.
Lovely.
So this normally takes about a minute on this machine.
Yeah, and the thing is the goal is that it does save you time. And like I said, to me, it's been, I mean, to do most apps, I won't say no, it's hard to say, but you know, a lot of apps, it's just, you just do what Deshaun just did, the native compilation. You know, going to a Docker image, same thing. It's this all handled through the command line here. Just a simple command.
Yeah.
The goal of Spring is like, we want you to focus on the problem. Now, there are times, like I said, that if you're pulling in some other things, you may have to add those hints, but that's getting smaller and smaller because people realize the need for native compilation.
So here we have now in my target directory, I have target YouTube, right? I have my Spring Boot app that knows how to start, and it starts in 0.122 seconds. Fantastic, right?
Yep.
So let's cancel that. And the question was like, what about building a native image? -p native Spring Boot build image. It's that easy.
Done.
Yep. So now there's this thing like I'm on ARM64. So the upstream build pack for Paketo does not support ARM64 yet. So I've made a build pack that does support ARM64 and it's out there. And we're trying to get those changes upstreamed into Paketo so that all you've got to do is this. Spring Boot build image. So this one is, it's using custom build pack, but that build pack is available for you, right? That's this build pack over here. GitHub.docker Deshaun, and it's the builder, right? Here, this one, the one that's got 10,000 downloads. That's an awesome milestone. If you change your build pack, and I've got a base image as well. If you change your build pack to Builder Tiny, then you can see here that it'll work on both AMD 64 and ARM 64. It's a manifest. So it's got both build packs slapped into a manifest.
Love it.
So that if I'm on, right, if I'm not on ARM 64 and I'm using Deshaun Tiny, what it's actually doing is using Paketo's Tiny. It's using the regular Builder Tiny. That's this layer, the AMD 64 layer is just grabbing Paketo's and it slaps together with mine. So that if you're using Deshaun Builder Tiny on ARM 64, you'll use my image. But if you're using it on x86, you're gonna get their image.
Love it.
Oh, look at this. Look at you. Make me so happy. Yes, use that. Use that. Jonas is doing stuff, and that's where my project started, was with Raspberry Pis. Right? I did all this work because I wanted my Spring workloads to run on these. I have one in arm's reach here on these devices right here. This is a Raspberry Pi 02. It's only got 512 megs, but it's got a 64-bit processor. Oh. And that chip is made by, you know the company that makes the chips on these?
Know who?
That company, oh, it doesn't say it on this one. But this chip right here, that's made by a company called Broadcom.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of them from somewhere.
Yeah. So these 512 megabytes, but look at this. It's a tiny, tiny little machine that I can put anywhere. I can put it in my kids' room. I can put it anywhere. I can put it everywhere. The project that was fun was a friend of ours, a coworker. He put one of these Raspberry Pis with one of the cameras and he put it over the kitchen sink. And if there was any dishes, the ML workload was if there's any dishes in the sink, the Wi-Fi for the house turned off.
I need that.
Right? So what I did, I had my kids put these together. And my kids, they put them in and they built the fancy cases and they made them all pretty and they stuck stickers on them. But then I installed this application that at first I was trying to figure hey, is your room messy or not? And that was really hard. That's a really hard use case. So I got it down to is your bed made? Mm-hmm. Be quiet because all the kids are home. Is your bed made? So I took pictures of the bed made, bed not made, and I had their little Raspberry Pi sitting up on top of their mirror in their room, just taking a picture of their bed. Right? If their bed. So now the other part of this is the kids all have their own VLANs. So in my house, Logan's stuff connects to Logan's VLAN.
Mm-hmm.
All the other, so they all have their own VLANs for their devices. So I can shut off just their VLAN. So just their devices. So like Logan's like, how come my Wi-Fi's not, Dad, my Wi-Fi's not working? They're connected to the same Wi-Fi, but their VLAN's shut off so they don't have access. And they're like, how come this isn't working? And sister is sitting right next to me. I'm working fine. I don't know. Dad, why is this? I don't know. Go clean your room. And they make their bed, and all of a sudden, their Wi-Fi works. Like, that's weird. Try again after you clean your room. So those aren't implemented right now, but I got to get those back, and that needs to be something I push back out to the public because those are fun projects.
That is a fun project.
I want those to be. Now we have Spring AI.
Yes.
Right? And now I want to add, and I want to use Spring AI because those are using, Python.
I haven't played with that 0.8 release. Last one I did was 0.7. I need to jump on to 0.8 because they made a lot of changes on the last one. A lot of tuning in it, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. So I got to go back to my demo. I did a demo that was basically how to write creating an outline. I did a lightning talk on using Spring AI to generate a lightning talk outline on Spring AI.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And basically, it was, I said, there's 3 different sections. The first lightning talk is how to do it through prompt engineering, right? The second's going to be through VectorDB. Let's see if we can suck in a document because even up to the latest, they're not keeping up with the examples, right? So the examples, even with the 0.8, they're not up to that. So it's like, okay, how can we feed it this? And then the third one will be, okay, I'm actually going to try to do model training. My model training sucks, but I'm learning. Yep. So I need to go to the 0.8.
So Sama says, hey, it'd be interesting to see you do some migrations from Spring Boot 2 to 3 on different Spring modules live on stream. So that's actually my jam. That's actually where I spend most of my time. When I'm not live on stream is most of the time I'm doing migrations. I'm showing tools like Open Rewrite, App Analyzer, the Spring Health Assessment Report. I'm showing these tools and working with people just like you. So I will absolutely do that because you've asked. Now you've said it here. Everybody sees it. The audience wants it, right? The community wants it. I've got to do it. So thank you for that. Here we are.
Suggestions.
Daniel says that's amazing. So yeah, we're doing stuff. Do you think, Ben, Glenn, do you think microservices have been overhyped?
I would say okay, I'm gonna go with it depends again, right? All right, so let's be honest with you. There's 2 ways to look at it. What solves your problem? Is it is your solution best handled by microservices, or is it a monolith? Now the thing is that there's the first thing I always say is that when people say we're getting rid of all our monoliths, I'm like, first off, the first thing you want to do is restructure your monolith. Because if you take that monolith and you're just going to make it microservices, you're going to amplify the problem that came in from the original monolith. And I'm not the progenitor of that original idea. I've got, it's like Neil Ford and several other folks who've written articles on that, on how. So I always tell people, it's like, before you go to microservices, look at your monolith. And there's a new project out there, relatively new, called Spring Modulith. Now, Spring Modulith's goal is to say, well, what if we could allow for communications between your modules? You modularize your app properly. Then you give communications between the modules and allow them to communicate in specific ways, and allowing private access to certain private and privileged access to those various elements within your modules. Now, if you go in and do that, then your monolith probably, or maybe, I don't think probably, it could, you're like, well, I don't need to have my microservices. This is working even better.
Yeah.
But then you say, okay, we did it, but we're still kind of restricted. Then you start saying, let's explore into microservices. Now, did a lot of people jump on it just because of the bells and whistles? Absolutely. Did they stump their toes? Yes. But that's when you always do stages. You're like, okay, let's try this. Let's experiment. And again, I know the company's like, wow, experimentation does sometimes, I don't see the value in it. It's like, yeah, it will save you money down the line. Trust me. Make sure you test as you go. Like I said, if I would even say that, like, I've even seen scenarios in some microservice and deployments. What they did was they took and aggregated some of this microservices and created a small monolith. And that small monolith now doesn't handle just a specific issue. It actually handles, or I say issue, but what's the term? It's been, how we keep denormalizing out microservices. They actually, or say, normalized them out, but basically they denormalized it a bit, so that it would handle different areas of work. And so what it is, I'm seeing some microservice architectures where it's like a monolith, microservice, monolith, microservice.
Yep.
And again, you denormalize it to what you need it to be, because they went too far. And then they're like, no, we're going to pull it back some. And I've seen that.
Here's another question. Another question, not Spring related. Why Spring and Java streamers don't exist a lot? There's only a handful of them. I'm here to help that. I think it's because they're busy making money and they're busy doing cool things. But one of the things that I'm trying to do here on this stream is I'm trying to encourage the learning in public. Earlier, CodeCore was on and he jumped on and he asked some questions. But just, I'm trying to encourage that, whether it's Java or other. I'm trying to encourage more, but there are some of us out there. I want you to take a look, maybe not as far as live stream, but our friend Josh Long over at Coffee Software.
Absolutely.
He's doing a lot more live streams and he's amazing. And I could literally he writes 5 lines of code, but then he talks for 20 minutes on those 5 lines. And that's where I learn. So he gives all this history and he has all of these things and he is a wealth of knowledge, not just about the code that's on the screen, but also the background and the reasons why these decisions were made. But he's one. And there's other. I know Marco Codes. I know he does a lot of Java and live streams. And does Glenn, do you do live streams?
Well, what we do is AJAG, Atlanta Java Users Group, right? You have local Java users groups. And in the Java users groups, a lot of times they will record those and release the recordings. So if you go to AJAG, I think it's ajag.org, you scroll down the bottom, you'll see where we have a lot of our previous meetings recorded. You could go view those. We still do them live the 3rd Tuesday of every month. And then we have DevNexus that we're going to be having, which is a conference in Atlanta. It's April, I'm going to think it's 7th through the 9th.
Awesome. And I'll be there.
Hey, I know, it's so great. Hugs, not virtual hugs, real hugs.
Real hugs.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
But it is, I think it's $450, I think, is the admission for 2 days of just wall to wall. I think we're doing 12 tracks this year. But we do recordings from that, release those a couple of months after the main event. But if you hop into Atlanta, you'll, like I said, get to meet the speakers. So that's also available. Java Champions will be doing a live streaming event.
Yeah, this is news to me.
Yeah, that's January 28th, 29th, and 30th. Josh Long will be one of the presenters there, but a lot of the Java Champions are there. Only way I represent the Java Champions in that is I will be moderating Josh's talk.
You are a Java champion.
Yeah,
just so everybody knows, you, Glenn Renfro, you are a Java champion on my stream, and I'm amazed that you're here, and this is great.
Well, it's a lot of fun. That's somebody says, "How'd you get it?" I said, just loving what I do. Anytime I can speak on it, anytime I can, DevNexus, that's a purely volunteer organization. I tell people I get paid massive amounts of money to do DevNexus with the other group. I've got jackets and T-shirts and shoes. Oh my! But no, it's great to do that. So, but the Java Champions are having a live stream. There's one I'm trying to remember. I heard about it last night. It's another stream, but it's like JDev. Is it JDev? No. You know what I'm talking about?
The JConf?
Not JConf. That's in Dallas, I think.
Yeah, I just saw one recently on my socials somewhere.
Yeah, hold on. I think I might have it. This is where you go back and.
Yeah, but while Glenn is thinking, I'm I would love to encourage more people. So like the little
Yeah.
YouTube integrations and Twitch bots and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to do that so that yeah, you can have something.
Oh,
And here's
JD
the other thing.
Conf. JD
JD
Conf.
Conf.
JD Conf.
You don't have to be Glenn in order to do a live stream.
Woo!
Learning in public is valuable. One of the things that we're going to talk about on the Spring Office Hours next week is being a developer advocate. Doesn't mean like that's your title. I was a developer advocate long time before I was on this team. You can be a developer advocate inside of your org or on your own. Dan and I both like to say Dan was making content, right? But he wasn't making content in order to be a developer advocate. He was making content in order to learn. And this is one of those things that one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it.
Oh,
So,
gosh,
Sama,
yeah.
here's my challenge to you is like, hey, maybe, and here, my challenge and my offer. I would love to do like a spring batch migration with you on stream. Let's do it together and let's stream together. We can stream it on your channel. Let's get the ball rolling. So I'm going to throw that out there. We've never met and you're here and I'm thankful that you're here. But yeah, that's what I would love to do. I am a Spring developer advocate. That is my job. But that means I would like to advocate for you. Let's talk about Spring Batch. Let's talk about some of the things that you're running into and let's go through some examples. And I'm not going to have the answers. And when we need to raise our hand, we'll reach out to Glenn. I've got friends that can come in, but we could do this. And if it takes us a week, it takes us a week. I don't have a schedule. I just want to help you learn more. I don't want to get you to the point where you're comfortable talking about Spring Batch migrations so that you can do it. You can record a video and you can be a streamer and do the YouTube stuff. I would love to do that for you, along with you. So let's.
Absolutely. The AI call, the AI talk, lightning talk I did, I was like, I want to learn more about this. How am I going to learn about it? I'm going to teach it. And then say, I'm going to do that lightning talk. Yeah. And that's how I got into it. And I said, you know what? This is 3 talks. And so I started doing, so okay, I'm going to do 3 lightning talks. It gives me a chance to learn, gives me an excuse. And here's the best part. And when you do it, you are the subject matter expert.
Yep.
And you don't, you're like, well, people are going to find me a fraud. Well, here's your number 1 fraud right here, right? it is literally, no, if you're teaching it, people want to learn. They're listening to you. They want to learn from you. So that's the best part. So we appreciate it.
Like in life, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, there's always going to be somebody in front of you.
Yes.
But there's always going to be somebody behind you.
Yes.
Right. And for you to teach somebody, you only have to be in front of them on something. Right. So, and there's all sorts of people that are at all sorts of spots, positions in their journey. And some of your questions already are showing me that you've been around and you understand some things. So I completely believe that there are tons of people that you could be helping and you could be pulling forward and helping us all. And selfishly, you'll be getting better at what you do by helping pull other people forward.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not all, hey, let me just help everybody. No, I'm getting better by helping others.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's my transparency. I'm selfish. I only want to help you get better so that I can get better. That's all there is to it. Fully selfish. So we're doing good stuff. So yeah, we're here and we have thank you for being here and asking the good questions. So I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you for being.
Yeah, and your questions helped me get to hang out with my friend Glenn. And we're doing stuff. And Glenn, as you can tell, Glenn is amazing and friendly and I'm sure everybody on the stream feels like they are now friends with Glenn.
Hugs, everybody. Hugs.
So good. So yeah, here we are. What are you working on today, Glenn? Actually, no, let's get back. What else is new in Spring Batch 5.1?
All right. So, okay, real quick. So, just real quick. So bulk insert support for Mongo Item Writer that we've introduced that. So some improvements to Mongo Item Reader, our cursor-based Mongo Item Reader has been introduced. So if you're doing any kind of Mongo stuff, let's see what else is there that's kind of worthy. Okay. So when you create a job, a lot of times people think a job is like A, B, C, D, right? Well, what if I could say that, okay, or it's a series of steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, right? Okay. Yes, that's perfect. But what if I could say you run step 1, step 2, but then you say, based on the result of step 2, I want to run step 3, but not 4. And then 3 goes back to step 5, step 6. You can put decision points to say, I want to run steps, a certain series of steps, if a certain action occurs from the previous step. So the best part is that by doing that, you can create these flows within your batch job. And one of the interesting things we had people asking for is like, I would like to, it was always you had to run the first step, and then from that first step you would go, you could ask that next question, run step 2 or 3, right? Then do step 4. Well, now you can actually start with a decision. You can say, okay, based on the conditions right now, I want to start with step 1 or step 2. I don't have to go do that obligatory first step. So that's kind of a little cool thing that Mahmoud popped in there, which, I mean, again, you're like, well, did Mahmoud think about that? He probably did, but what if it probably came from people like you?
Yes.
People said, this would make it better. And a lot of this comes from issues that you open up on a project like Spring Batch, Spring Cloud Data Flow, Spring Boot. And sometimes we may say, well, that's already handled here. We may say, well, that's, give us more information. But a lot of times we'll say, yeah, hey, that's actually a good thing. We'll put that over here.
Simon says, my wish is to work for Spring one day. So fingers crossed. Glenn, what's the best way to find yourself on the Spring team? What is the way? I'm pretty sure 95% of everybody that's on the Spring team found their self on the Spring team for the exact same path. How did they start?
Oh gosh. Well, all right. So, I'm going to go through some cases. I know the way that I got in was through the Atlanta Java Users Group. I got to meet with a lot of the people on the Spring team, but I was also doing at the time blogging. I know blogging's not that much out there. It's still out there. But I was doing some blogging. I was doing some talks on it, and then there was I saw that there were some positions open, and I tried. I said, okay, here's my name, I would like to apply, and I went through this interview process. And my wife said, "What do you think you get?" I said, "Well, here's the goal. I'm going to try, and if I tried, I failed, at least I could say I tried." Well, they said, okay, that's okay. You survived, all right. And then it was like, okay, then I got the job offer, and my wife says, "Well, how do you feel?" I said, "Well, they'll fire me in 2 weeks, but at least I could say I worked for Spring for 2 weeks, and I tried."
Yep.
And that was about 11 years ago. So
it feels like so much longer.
Yeah. So the ways that some people, it's like, I know one person who's now a project owner he was contributing to Spring. That's probably the best way right now, is contribute to a Spring project. Opening up issues.
Documentation.
Oh gosh, please.
Requests.
Review the docs.
Yep.
Submit doc reviews. I even have on Spring Cloud Task, I even have some for first timers only, like 2 easy issues that if you want to pop in and close those out on Spring Cloud Task, go for it, right?
This
They're
is
easy,
the route.
Right?
This is the route that I think is the most popular. Is you found Spring Batch, and you ran into an issue, and you wrote a blog about, here's how I migrated from Spring Boot 3.2 to Spring Boot 3. Yeah. And it was a Spring Batch rule, and here's what the things I had to do for Spring Batch. And you wrote that blog, and then maybe you wrote an open rewrite recipe, and you contributed that. And maybe you asked a question on a GitHub issue. And in my head, I like to hear Spencer Gibb talk about his path. He's like, I'm asking questions, and I was doing this thing. Yes! And they're like, hey, you're doing some really cool things that we're actually doing at the same time. Why don't you just come and work with us? Right? I'm pretty sure Jonathan is kind of that same, opening issues, fixing bugs, and then just like, hey, thanks for fixing those 5 bugs. Would you like a job? Right?
There's people that I can name off the top of my head that are regular contributors to Spring on various projects. Oh, yeah. And I mean, they only do code. It's issues, code. They open an issue. They even resolve the issue sometimes. And I know these folks, and it's like when I see their name pop up, I'm going, oh, that's going to be a good one because that person knows. Or I see some people raising issues, and I'm going, that person knows what they're talking about. I might ask you questions. There was like one person on task that was asking a question, and I was like, I challenged him. I said, I don't see where you're coming from on this. I know you're asking a good question, but I'm not seeing it. And he was like, well, think about it this way. And I went, okay, so I'm going back and reconsidering it. Like, okay, I'm not going to kill it right. But that one person, I know him, not personally, but he's opened up issues. He's even put up solutions. And it's like, you get our attention. And then we say, well, we're hiring. And it's like, oh, I would like for that job. And then it's like, I'm part of the Paris Jug. I'm also contributed these. And you put that in your title letter, and then you've got our attention. And part of my interview was they said, give us access, show us your GitHub repository. Seriously. Yeah. They tore into it.
Yeah. I remember that. I'll never forget that interview.
Yeah, it was tough.
It was a small company, and I was sitting. He was the president of the Kansas City Java user group. Steve Mitchell was at one desk, and Constantine, the other lead architect, was at the other desk. And we're doing the small talk, and like, hey, like, why do you think you'd fit in here? And Constantine goes, "Can I see your code?" With the Russian accent. I don't know how to do Russian accent. He would say, "Can I see your code?" And I was like, sure. And I open up my SVN and I give him access, and I'm like, hey, here. And then he's why did you do this? And I explained it to him.
Yes.
And yes. He goes, that's not the good way, but we'll go on. And he's scrolling. Why did you do this? I was like, well, here, I'll tell you why. If you go over here, click, click, click. And then he turns around, he goes over, he goes, I was like,
is that it?
What does that mean? Am I in? So yeah, that whole thing. I don't know that anybody does that, but I'll never forget that. That was like in 2002.
Yeah, I was asked. I was given
like a little nervous thinking about that.
I was working for Terracotta at the time, and I was doing some demos at the time, and I had written up several demos and was using that as a part of my spiel when I was doing that work. And when I interviewed with Spring, they were like, "Why'd you use that tool? Why did you choose that? Can you tell me why? And you did this. Why'd you do that?" And what it was is it wasn't challenging you like it's a bad idea. They wanted to know what your decision matrix was.
Yeah.
And you give them a good reason. It's like, I looked at this. We made these decisions. These are the highs, the lows of it. We made a decision. What was good? This is what we found good about it. This is what bad. It's being able to explain and communicate what happened there, why you chose it, and then what was the outcome.
Yep. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, and when I look back at the decisions that I made, I'll say that 90% of the time, the decision I made was I was able to get to the milestone I needed to get to in the smallest amount of time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why I love Spring and Spring Boot so much, because I'm able to get to that milestone quickly.
Yes.
I don't have to evaluate a bunch of other options. Most of the time, what I'm doing, the Spring team has already done it right there, right? Mahmoud has already interviewed, and he's already gotten the feedback from customers from all over the world for Spring Batch and Spring Task, right? Spring Task. All those, you're having these conversations and you're in all the issues and people are asking, and then it comes into release. So you have like that overall summary of the people that are speaking up, right? You get that. So you have that sense. And I get to come along and I just get to I get it for nothing.
Well, here's the thing is real quick on the batch side. If you're like, okay, batch sounds cool. Where do I get started? Spring Academy has a free batch course that Mahmoud wrote it. I was the editor. Yeah, I edited it for him, and it is rocking. So
I love it, and it's free. It's one of the free courses.
It's a free course, and that was an act of love. So jump in there, play with it, and what you're going to do is you're going to create a single step batch job. Remember how I said you can have step after step after step? And in that step job, you're going to have a reader, a writer, a processor. We're going to show you how to build a step. And then we'll even introduce to you how to build that. Okay, I want to create 2 steps. Now, we don't go into the advanced stuff, which talks about the flow. But then if you look at the docs, there's a lot of videos out there to show you how to do that flow, the decisions, things like.
Here you go. Lawrence is asking, which course? It's right here. This is a free course on spring.academy, building a batch application with Spring Batch. Now, what you're going to love here, Lawrence, is I've just put the link up there, and I'm going to pull this thing over. For my Spring Batch application that I was planning on doing today, I'm going to build a front end using Vaadin. Right here, you can see my YouTube analysis assistant. We were talking about our YouTube use case, which was over here somewhere. I don't remember where I found it. It was up here somewhere. I don't know. But that's it. You're going to love it. What we're going to do is we're going to take that Spring Batch workload and we're going to throw a Vaadin front end on it. Vaadin. Lawrence is a Vaadin developer advocate.
There you
And
go.
I love Vaadin Flow.
Oh, I know Lawrence.
Yes.
Yes.
So there we
I
go.
met Lawrence. He was at Connect Tech, and I got to meet him.
Yes. Yes, he was. So here we are. Fantastic. So cool. Absolutely. And I love our job.
Hey, Lawrence.
I love our job. So super cool. So here we are. Oh, my wife is yelling at my kids. Yes. You guys met Anna.
That's life, my friend. That's life happening around you.
Yeah. So here we are. We're doing stuff. This is fantastic. Keep going. Like this is the cool thing. So go take a look. I'm doing this course. This is like my jam. So we're come on. We've had a lot of great conversations, and we've answered a lot of questions, and we're doing stuff. So if you're here and you're interested in Spring Batch, this is where we should start, and we'll come back tomorrow. Again, I've got no agenda. Sama's gonna think about doing a live stream with us and doing a migration of a Spring Batch Spring Boot 2.x application, taking it to Spring Boot 3.x. I've got a question for you. Here's in my head, when I think of Spring Batch, we've already talked about Spring Cloud Dataflow. And somewhere along the lines of reading, I come to think of Spring Cloud Dataflow as like a UI for Spring Batch. Is that a good take?
Well, that is part of the story of Dataflow. Dataflow is really an orchestrator. So you think about it where Dataflow sees two worlds. It has a streaming world where I could create the streams. I could create and say, I have like these 5 beautiful Spring Cloud Stream apps, a source, 3 processors, and a sink. I want to take and drag and drop these apps in. I don't want to have to worry about all setting up the properties. I want them to run on Kafka, and I just want to just plug and play and go. I want to orchestrate how it's going to flow. Dataflow does that for me. And when it's time for me to, I've got to update this one app, to version 2. I need to be able to update it. Dataflow, I've registered a new version 2 of my app. Update it, please, for me. And you update it. Wait a minute, I made a mistake. Can we roll it back? I want to roll it back. It'll do that for me. I want to deploy it to Kubernetes. Dataflow says, okay, I'll deploy these apps to Kubernetes. I want to deploy it to Taz. There you go. It deploys it to Taz. I want to deploy it locally. But then you say, well, Glenn, okay, that's streaming. What about batch? Well, I can register a bunch of batch apps, and I can say, launch these apps. I want to schedule this batch app to run in 2 hours. I want it to run once a day. Okay, could you schedule that for me? I want to schedule it and run it on my Kubernetes instance. Oh, by the way, I launched 500 apps or batch apps. How do they go? Okay, I want to view all of my apps that ran or my batch apps. Oh, all of them ran except for you. Let me go take a look at you. What happened? Okay, let's go look at the log. Let's see what step failed. Okay. It was trying to get a hold of a service. The service was down. It retried, failed. And finally, the app said, look, I've retried 50 times. I'm going to stop. Okay, well, that service is back up. Let me hit restart. When I hit restart, what's going to happen is it's going to, like Deshaun mentioned earlier, it's going to just take and run and go, that step. Oh, this is a step that failed. Let's pick up here and run with this step, and then we'll finish it out. So if I'm running 5 million records, and it dies at 2.5 million, it'll pick up at that 2.5 million and finish the processing. So, but through Dataflow, not only can I do that type of being able to have it launch or schedule, and it has you can hit it from RESTful API. I can just say, hey, I've got the specialized timer I have or scheduler here. I want to just send out curl requests to launch. I can do that, but through Dataflow, I think they go back in and check the statuses, restart them. all this wonderful stuff. Gives you can go in and look at metrics and observations through, because we hook into micrometer to get that, so you can view those.
So
It
here's some of
does
the
it
stuff.
does laundry, socks.
In my house, I don't know about in your house, but in my house, I can do laundry anytime I want to.
Really,
I'm
it's
just saying.
there.
I'm just saying. I kind of run this thing. I can do laundry anytime I want to. And when my wife's not here, I sit in her chair.
Ooh,
Yep,
I'm not
I
gonna
do.
say
When she's
anything.
not
I'm
here.
staying out of that.
Yep, I'm just saying. Here's the thing. I was talking earlier about kind of building these things. And, I'm trying to stream more and do this show in the morning. It's just about kind of getting hands on keyboard. And I need to practice. But I made a Twitch metrics exporter. I wanted to expose some of the things that are happening on Twitch. Like the number of subscribers, number of followers, like who's chatting and all that kind of stuff. Stuff that might be fun if you're trying to stream. Give them an app that shows, hey, here's how you might do it with Spring. But now I'm thinking there's so much more. There's so much more I could do. Because we talked about like YouTube, and we know our friend Josh, like he's got all the automation. He does all this magic stuff so that when he creates a new video, it shoots out a Twitter, and he's got it. But in my head, there's also these like analytics reports kind of things. Like I might want to go back and look and see like, hey, how did that tweet do? And I might schedule that as a batch job. Like, hey, go pull down the Twitter analytics and see where, yes, no, did it work? And or maybe like time of day kind of stuff. But you might want to do those kind of things. And a lot of these like streaming content things that are like really job boring stuff. I in my head I've got this now picture of how I might use Spring Cloud Dataflow to like schedule those things. Like I'm scheduling my shows ahead of time, and I'm
Right. If you're
wanting
running a
to do these
Kubernetes instance, all you got to do is say, hey, I built my containers, and then I could say deploy this to my Kubernetes Minikube, or if I'm running my own cluster, which I know you do,
Yes.
and then you say, it's a cron job. I want to run it. Just put in a cron expression. Run it at 7:59 a.m. CST, and then I wake up and then after I've checked everything else, okay, let me go check my stats, okay, because I know it's going to finish in 30 minutes. There you go. I can see these are my stats for the day.
Yeah.
The best part about batches is that it basically does this. It wakes up. They call it a short-lived app. It wakes up, it does its work, it terminates. It doesn't take any additional resources just to keep it alive, just to wait for the request.
Yeah.
Let Kubernetes with cron jobs help you do that, right?
Love it. Lawrence has already given me a name. He's naming these products before I'm even starting. Seanalytics, here it comes. Yes, indeed.
He's my hero.
Like, yeah, we'll have it. Like, connect all the dots, and because I'm going to do some work with Lawrence. All right, we're gonna work on this. Remember, you promised we're gonna do some live streaming. Yeah, maybe that's something that we work on, right? Because Lawrence is in the same kind of space where we got to get these analytics. We got to do interesting stuff, and the other piece is like right now we're live, and I've been looking for a use case for another project, Spring State Machine.
Yes.
We thought it was going away. I thought Spring State Machine was gone and not going to come back, but now it's here and we got a new version. And I'm just asking a question, friend to friend.
Yep.
I'm looking for this use case to do Spring State Machine, and here's my use case. Am I live or am I not live?
Right.
The analytics, the things that I care about during a live stream are different than not. Right? I don't care how many chatters there were when I'm not live, but I might want to get like, hey, after the show, like how many people go back and watch the show for the next day, or maybe at midnight, like, hey, how many views do we get after day one? If I'm doing my show at 8:30, I do a snapshot at midnight, batch job. Hey, go grab my analytics. Am I live? Am I not? But what if I'm doing a 24-hour live stream? I don't need to run that batch job.
Right.
Hey, is my state good? Does that make sense? Would that be an interesting use case?
I mean, you could, but the way that you could also do it, I don't know.
Because conditional. I have my conditional that I can run. Like, are you live or not? If you're live, I'm not going to run this batch job.
You could do it. Or you could also, that gets added to complexity. I can't. It's like, have you ever come up with? That's a long way to do that. But I mean, you could also do it by popping in a Spring Cloud task and on your B Spring batch, and then you can have a before condition where you go into that before task, where you go out and you say, is this, is there a live stream running? Set these parameters, right? So you can add a task that's like a precursor before you even run the batch, just check state or prepare state for that batch job. So you could do that as well.
Yeah.
So it's all handled within one application.
There we go.
And you could do that. So all you have to do that is you add Spring Cloud task to it, and then at enable task, and then all you have to do at that point is just say, hey, at before task, and then it'll do that before the batch job.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
This is great. I am so glad that we get to do this. This is
It
fun.
was
I'm
fun.
learning. I'm still gonna do the Spring Academy batch class. We talked about the jug. I watched Michael Manella's Sea Jug from like 10 years ago, where he was talking about Spring
It's
batch.
good.
But it's a good video. But yeah, just I'm learning. I've got the use cases, and Seanalytics is going to do this batch type of processing, and yeah,
Just
This
let
will
me
be
know how
fun.
I can help.
this will be fun. I appreciate you so much for
Sure.
dropping everything else and joining us and putting us above all the other things that you have on your plate. I appreciate that so much. And yeah, we'll wrap up. I appreciate everybody for joining. Tomorrow, I think, I'll stick in this Spring Batch, Spring Cloud Data Flow. I might just want to get like Spring Cloud Data Flow deployed to Kubernetes and then just schedule one batch.
Right.
Right. I might want to do that as like an example. So yeah, thank you.
Sure.
My mind is racing and I love being in this spot. Yeah, I hope we can do it again soon. Thank you
Sounds
so
good,
much
my
for
friend. Thank you for the invitation.
I appreciate you. So
Take
I
care.
think we'll wrap it up there. And yeah, everybody, thanks for joining. I'll same time tomorrow, 8:30 Central to 10. We'll stop a little bit early today, but yeah, we'll be here. And if you got questions, you know how to get a hold of me. And thanks for joining. Thanks everybody. I appreciate you.
See you, folks. Y'all have a wonderful day or evening.